Well, we could debate whether or not John Wesley would like this new background. Let's imagine he does, but that he asks us to modernize it even a little bit more. You might say, compare, for example, Life Church, how if you look closer, we've got some nice textures in here. We also have a little light colored edge along the top of that red, and then it transitions to the black, which serves as a place to hold the logo and some other information. So let's see what we could do to take this image and add a bit more fine touches to it. Here we are, our Photoshop document. I'm going to zoom out a bit. And let's first add a new black rectangle up at the top to serve as our own sort of area for holding some other information. I'm going to take and simply repeat our first black edge would be a fine thing to do, so let's duplicate that layer. And I'm going to call it black edge top. Okay. Now we just need to grab our move tool and drag that layer up to the top of edge of our red rectangle. Now I'm going to use free transform to stretch that a little bit taller. If I free transform this, it gives me handles, and I can zoom in a couple of times here, and grab that handle, and drag this down to, let's go for something like 50 pixels. There we go. Zoom back out. See what that looks like. That gives me some room to work with there. I'm going to accept that for now. I can adjust it later if I want to. Now, another nice touch would be to actually add a white color, a little white line to the top edge of this red rectangle. Now, it looks like there's one, but actually that's only because we have the path highlighted here. So I'm going to unclick the vector mask thumbnail by just clicking on it one more time, and you can see that we don't actually have a white edge there. But the white edge gives us a sense of depth. It gives us a sense of a glowing edge from the light striking it. So let's go to our rectangle tool, and let's choose to do a fixed size 1200 pixels wide by 1 pixel tall rectangle this time. I'm going to click enter and click down here, and 1 pixel tall rectangle. Obviously that's going to be really small. It just so happened that my default color was white. You may have to change yours by clicking on the color thumbnail and changing this value to white. Accept that. And then we can take our move tool, and we can take, and as long as I've got this shape selected, I'm going to change its name, white edge. Then I can take my move tool and just scoot that over so it fits in the boundaries of my documents. There we go. Now, one of the things that happened when I created this white edge is that it carried over the effects, the gradient overlay that I had on my red rectangle. I don't need that. It actually gets in the way of what I want to do, so I'm going to take and drag those effects down to the trash, get rid of those, and then you know what? That white edge is just a little bit bright, so let's take its opacity down to about 50%. There. That looks better. Now, another nice touch would be to actually add a similar white edge down at the bottom edge of our lower black down at the bottom. So we can copy this this layer, duplicate layer, and I'm going to call it white edge lower. Okay. And I'm going to drag that down in the layers palette below the other ones, so this helps me remember which one's higher and which one's lower. And I'm going to call this one white edge top. That way I can keep these things organized. Now, in your layers palette, select the white edge lower. I'm going to deselect the vector, mask them now. And now I need to take my move tool and drag that 1 pixel tall white rectangle to the very bottom edge of my lower black stripe. Let's zoom in and see what's going on down here. Here we can see that that's it right there, showing up at the bottom edge of the black. We might want to bring its opacity up in this case, since it's on top of black. This will let it show up a little bit better, bringing that up to about 83%. I call that good. Save our work since we're relatively happy with it. Let's keep going and see what else we can do here. Now, one thing that would be fun would be to take this black area and give it some depth. This is my black edge top. Let's use blending options to add the effect of depth. Instead of a gradient which rolls out, perhaps we can use some inner shadow to give it a sense of rolling back into the surface. If we were to use inner shadow and give it a light color, maybe something like a medium light gray, using 9s, accept that. For the angle, make it -90 degrees so it looks as if it's coming from the bottom. And let's change our blend mode to lighten. That begins to lighten the inside edge of our black rectangle. I'm going to OK that for now. Zoom in a little bit so I can see this better. There we go. Then I'm going to go back and edit this by double-clicking on the inner shadow effects layer. I'm going to work on this a little bit. Let's take distance and adjust it, see what happens. Let's take size, adjust it a little bit. Stretches it out a little bit more. And now we're starting to see it's as if it's rolling in and then coming back out to the surface. So from the top going in and then coming back out. That's not bad. I can experiment with opacity to see if I'd rather have it higher or lower. I might just bring that down just a little bit more. There. I think that looks good. Let's accept that. Zoom back out and see what we think. Looks pretty fun. Now on the right and left edges, you'll see that that's also giving an inner shadow from the right and left, but we're actually going to take this slice from the middle and repeat it so that doesn't mess us up at all. Now, one last touch. I'd like to add some noise to this red gradient. That's an easy step. Let's go down to our red rectangle and add a new layer on top of that. I'm just going to click the new layer button, put a layer there, name this layer noise, and let's fill that with white. So I'm going to go to my fill tool, which is underneath the gradient tool. Choose white. I've actually already got white selected, and fill this noise layer with white. Then you'll remember we go to Filter, Add Noise, 50%. Seems to work pretty well. And then let's take the opacity on this layer down to something like 15%. Maybe even 10. Let's just make it nice, subtle. Well, how's 11? Works for me. It's visible, but it's not overpowering. And I think that this is going to make a very interesting backdrop for our design. So let's save that. Save for web. JPEG high. Save. And I'm going to grab the name from the shape we made previously. Black edge. I'm going to call this one red gradient polished. And save. Let's go find that in our files. It's going to be deposited down here now. Remove the 03, which I don't need. Then take this over to our site files. Copy it over. There it is, polished. Again, I'm going to cheat, double click, copy that name, go to my document, copy that name right into here and paste it. There we go, red gradient polished. Let's see how this looks. Refresh. Well, that's not bad. Got a couple of problems, slight ones. We can fix these. One is if I zoom in, I'm going to see that that noise, when it's repeating, is leaving me a pattern that I don't necessarily like over here on the edge. Zoom back out and you can kind of see that repeating better. And we need to move this main area down so it clears our top black. And you know what? I think I would like to reduce the opacity on this inner shadow effect after all. So let's go back and touch up a couple of things. On the black edge top, inner shadow, I'm going to reduce its opacity a little bit. I might actually reduce its opacity and increase its size, which might do what I want a little bit better. Just a little bit. Okay, like that. Okay, that. Now, to fix the problem with the repeating pattern from the noise, I actually need to take and make a wider slice, because as we have a wider slice, right now it's only 20 pixels wide. If we make that wider, something like 60 pixels, we'll be able to reduce the repetition of that noise. So I've just hit Command or Control semicolon to bring my guides back. I'm going to go to the Slice Select tool. Underneath the Slice tool is the Slice Select tool, which allows you to grab the handle on a previously made slice. I'm going to drag that to 40 pixels and all the way to 60 pixels wide. And so now you can see I've got a 60 pixel wide slice. If I turn off the guides, Command semicolon, you can see how wide that is. Now I'm going to save for web. And JPEG high. And do the same thing I did just a bit ago. Call it polished. Click save. Let's go find that. This one, called it 03. Let's delete this one. Move that to trash. Take a layer extra. Now copy this. And yes, replace. Saves me having to retype the code. File was the same name in the same folder, so I just need to refresh and see if that came out better. Actually, that came out quite a bit better. I like the effect on the black inset area at the top. The noise looks a lot prettier. Now I just need to move this main section down to provide space for our new top area. Go to our code, scroll down a bit to the main div ID main. Now in the layout file, it's got some top margin on it. I'm just going to add a little bit more margin here. Margin top, let's make it something like 80 pixels of margin. There we go. Move that down. Let's see how that works. You know, I think Wesley's got to like that.